Okay, guys, welcome back to our another episode of our Halloween themed memory game. Today we are going to be hopefully finishing off the game completely, which is perfect timing because according to, or hopefully if I've scheduled all of these videos to be released in the right order, this should be on Monday, which is Halloween, the 31st of October. So hopefully that is all correct and that is planned well. But today we are going to be finishing the game by simply dealing with whatever happens after you have flipped over two cards. So at the moment, I think in our game, if I can remember correctly, when we reveal what is underneath the two cards that we choose, it reveals whatever's underneath them, but then nothing happens. So we want to go ahead and deal with that today, and then so actually let's just jump in here and see what's happening. So this is where we left off in our previous episode. Let's just pick one. So let's pick this card and this card. Okay, so these cards do not match. So we can see here in our console that clearly our logic is working, but we are not actually dealing with whatever happens afterwards. So you can't flip these over, and you can't turn over any other cards, which is perfectly fine. That's what we want. But now that we have flipped over these two cards, and we now realize that they don't actually match, we want to go ahead and flip them over again so that it looks like these ones. And then let's do this again. So when we play the game and click on, there's a bat, let's see, okay, those don't match, but when we click on two cards that do match, we want to go ahead and actually get rid of them off of the screen so that we can carry on playing the game and flip over the remaining cards to try and finish the game. So we're going to go ahead and work on that today. So for that, we need to jump straight into our game manager, I believe. Yes. Okay, so first thing we want to do is we need to check and see if the cards match. But since we have already done that, we can just go ahead and get rid of our debug.log message here and do whatever we want to do when the cards match. So let's go and do that. So in here we are going to create another method, and I think we will make this, what are we going to call this? Let's call this check if cards match, like that. So we'll create that method over here, and then whatever happens when we match two cards, this method here is going to be called. So let's go and say, actually let's go and make this let's go and say start coroutine, and then we'll close that off like that. That way we can add some delay into our game. So where do you want this? We want this just here. So here we can go and say what am I speaking? I'm not even speaking English. Enumerator. There it is. And then we need it to be check if cards match. So paste that like that, and then that should be fine. So hopefully that goes away, which it does. So now we need to, let's show potential. Okay. Okay, we'll leave that like that. Okay, so what we want to do when these cards match is we want to go ahead and add in a little bit of delay. So here we can say yield return, what is it? Wait 4 seconds, and then let's add in about 1.5 seconds before we do anything. So why is this not working? Okay, so here we need to say new wait 4 seconds, and then underneath whatever we put underneath this this line of code here will only be executed after that 1.5 second delay, sorry. So here we can go ahead and say if, what do we want to say? We want to say, actually then we don't need to do that, so because we've already checked if the first guess is equal to the second guess. Okay, that's fine. So let's go here and say let's try this. So here we want to say we need to deal with the cards. So at the moment, let's go see something. If we flip over 2 cards, these 2 cards do not match, so we need to flip them over. Okay, so that's not what we want. So when a card actually matches, we want to go ahead and get rid of the card off of the screen. But I think if we do, let's just try this quick. Actually we can't do that. If we delete a card out of the, what is it called? Out of the group, I think it is. Let's just check, what is it called? Because we'll need it in our code. Out of our grid layout, I think it is going to like move all the cards around in the grid layout, so like it repositions them, just to make sure that they're not all scattered, which is not what we want. Obviously in a memory game you want the cards to stay in the same place so that you remember where the cards are, obviously the ones that you have already flipped over. So because of that, we won't be able to delete the card out of the game. Therefore, we will have to work around this by, I think we might just be able to disable it. So let's go and try and do that. So here we need access to our card. So let's see. So here we have, let's go and say, what do we call it? Do we have an array of buttons here? We should have card button list here. Okay, so let's try card button list. So if we go into our list here and say card button list at index of the first guess, I think it's first guess index. Here we want to go and say first guess index dot set dot game object. Let's try that. Dot game object dot set active false. Let's try and see what that does. But we don't only want to do that to the first one, we also want to do that to the second guess index. So assuming that our cards match, we want to go ahead, oh, that's not going to work because we have no cards. Level select scene, we want to go ahead and get rid of them off the scene. So let's try that one and this one. Okay, so those 2 match. Yeah, so see, that's not going to work either. So as you see, because the cards are now disabled, they also disappear out of the grid layout, so it reshuffles all the cards, so we don't want that. So what we'll have to do is, instead of saying game object dot set active is equal to false, or set active false, here we want to say dot sprite or dot image dot color is equal to a new color, and then we can just go and say 0 by 0 0 like that. So we'll do that, and then we'll copy that, and we can paste this in there, save that, and then jump back into here and see if that works. So now if we press easy again and we pick those 2 cards again, so these 2 match now. Okay, so that works, but we don't want a black card. So let's go and set the transparency to 0 as well. So if we set transparency to 0, go to the next one on both of them. What am I doing? I can't see my keyboard. So we'll save that, and then we will jump back into here. So now if we do the same thing again, we should see that if we choose those, hopefully they match, they do, those now disappear, or they're still there because we will be able to see them in our game board. So the first one is, let's go into our scene. So there's the first one, and I think it's 1 2 3 4, so there's our 4th one. They're still in the scene, but you can no longer see them. But the thing is, you can still actually interact with them. So the buttons are there, you can still interact with them. You can see that when we hover over them in our scale here, that they are actually moving and changing size. So let us go and deal with that now. Now that we have our color set to 0, or set to transparent, before we do that, let's go and disable our buttons. So to do that, we will go and say the exact same thing. So let's go and copy this, but instead of dealing with our image, we want to go and say interactable right there. Dot inter, if I can spell interactable, is going to be set to false. So as simple as that. We'll copy and paste that, and then we'll do that to our to our second guess index, like that. So we'll save that. So that should be fine. So now let's play the game and see what happens. So we choose the same ones again. Okay, so they disappear, and now we can see that obviously they are still in the scene. There is 0 and 4. But nothing happens now. You see, we can hover over them and nothing changes. So they're still there, but you just can't see them and you can't interact with them. So now we need to go and deal with this issue that we are having, where we can't turn over any other cards in the stack or the board. So let's see. So actually, let's go and deal with the cards that have not been turned over. So to do that, we will say let's see if the cards if the cards do match, then we'll call cards, well, go and check if cards match. Actually, let's rename this to deal with matching cards, because we've already checked if they match over here. And then we'll copy and paste that and paste that there. So that should be fine. So now let's go and deal with the cards that don't match. So the first thing we want to do is the only thing we really want to do is just go and flip them over again. And to do that, we just need to replace the image with the background image. So if you can see here, where is it that we selected? Do we have a background image reference here? Background card image, we do. Okay, so here we want to let's just go and copy this, because this is where we set the background of each card. So in here, all we want to do is paste that twice, but instead of having I in here, obviously we don't have that because we're not going through a loop. We only want to go and set the first index and the second index, so the two cards that we've just flipped over. So we can copy our first guess index, so this is going to flip over the first guess that we had, and then we can go and flip over the second guess that we had again. So we'll save that, and let's go back into the game and see if this works. Let's play the game. So now we need to try and get a card that does not match. So let's go easy, we'll pick that one and that one. Okay, so that doesn't work. So let's play that again. Let's type we'll try easy, that one, and that one. Okay, so that clearly doesn't work. So let's go and see what's happening here. So if first guess card name is equal to second guess card name, then start coroutine. Okay. So let's see, what do we want to do here? So that deals with, do the cards match? If they do all of this, that's fine. Okay, so let's do this. Let's go and save. Try this again and see what happens. If we pick two that match, which are these two, they eventually turn over, which is fine. Now I want to try if they don't match. Let's try this one. Okay, so we can no longer click on that one. Okay, so we can. Okay, hold on. That's not working how we wanted it to work. Okay. So let's see. Here we want to do something else. Maybe we should put this into a different different method here. So we can get rid of this and put it in somewhere else. Let's have a look and see. Let us go into this. Let's try this. Okay, so let's get rid of this. We'll cut that out so we can paste it somewhere else. And then over here we will say, we will simply call our coroutine here. So let's go and say start coroutine and say, what is it called? What do we name it? Deal with matching cards, like that. Cool. And then we will do the checking in our coroutine. So here, first of all, we want to add a delay. So let's go and copy that and paste that there. So before we do anything, let's add in a 1.5 second delay. Then we can get rid of this and say all of this. We'll cut that up and paste that in here. And that's fine. Okay, so if the cards do match, then we want to go and set the button to interactable, or to not be interactable, and then we want to go and set the transparency to 0 so that we don't see the card. And then we need to do something else. After we do that, we need to check if the game is finished, because if it's not finished, then we need to allow the player to carry on with the game. So here, let's go and say, let's say check if game is complete. What am I doing? So like that. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to create a new method here. So here we will say private void check if game is complete. So that should go and disappear, that error. So now in here we want to add a what's called a count, guesses count reference somewhere. So here, so if we call this method, that means that our guess is correct, so we can go ahead and add 1 onto our correct guess count. So just bring that down here and go plus plus. So now that we're using that, that will be no longer grayed out eventually when it resumes. So now that we have correctly guessed a matching pair, we can go ahead and add 1 to our count, and then we can also go and say if the what's it called, correct guesses count is equal to our game guesses, then we can go and say that the game is finished. But at the moment our game guesses is not set to anything. As you can see, we're only using there, and this is going to keep a reference to how many guesses or how many matching pairs we have. So we can simply get this by getting the total number of cards in our game board and dividing that by 2. So to do that, let's go into our start method here, and under our get pictures we can go and say get matching pair count. And to do that, all we need to say is guesses count, or let's say game guesses, is equal to global dot level divided by 2. So because our level holds the amount of cards that are going to be in the game, simply halving that will give us the correct amount of guesses we need to finish the game. So if we get to a point where we have guessed all of our matching pairs correctly, and that is now equal to our game guesses, then obviously our game is complete. So here, let's go and say debug.log. Let's say game is complete. Okay, so that's fine. But now I still have a feeling that this is not really going to work. So let's see. Let's go and play this and see if this has made any sort of a difference. So easy, let's pick the first one and the second one, so they will disappear eventually. So now we still can't click on the next one, so we need to figure this out. So we are currently setting, well, we're not really telling a game that we have figured out a matching pair and that yeah, so we're not really telling our game that we have completed our first pair and that we need to somehow be allowed to guess again. So let's have a look here. If our first guess is equal to false, okay, so here's something. So if this code here will only run if our first guess is equal to false, but when we flip over a card, we are setting it to true and also setting our second guess to true. So when we eventually finish all of this here, we need to go and reset our first guess as well as our second guess to be false again. And in that case, if it is, hopefully that will allow us to go and guess again. So let's try and put that here. So over here, we want to, do we want to add in a delay to this? We might as well. Let's keep it consistent. Let's add in a, well, we won't add in a long delay, but we will add in a 0.5 second delay, and then here we will say first guess is equal to false, and then second guess is equal to false. So you'll say that just like that, and then I think that's it. Let's go and see if the game works. So let's play the game, select the level, let's pick the two that match. So these two bats, they match. So now that they disappear, we can go ahead and select another two. So these two don't match and they have returned, so we can select another two. Okay, so that's working nicely. So let's try this one and this one. So these two match, and will they disappear? They do. Okay, so let's try this one and this one. Those don't match, so they flip back over. Let's try this one and this one. So those match, and then they disappear, and then these two match, and then they eventually disappear, and now we should get this message here saying game is complete. So that's pretty much it for the game, or the actual game logic. But we don't really want a message in our console. We want like a UI to pop up displaying that our game is complete and probably how many guesses it took us to complete the game, which will probably be good, because when we get onto a game like the medium or even the hard version, okay, we can't play those now because obviously we don't have the cards, but when we get onto a, well, the medium or the hard level, when there are multiple cards and we have multiple guesses and the game goes on for so long, we probably eventually want to see at the end, when we have finished the game, how many guesses it took us to complete the game. So unfortunately this video is longer than expected because we ran into that little bit of a problem, and I don't know if you noticed, but the cards in the board, they're not shuffled, they're in the same order every single time you play the game. So if you play the game once and you remember the order of the cards, it's going to be the exact same thing. And let me just show you here quick. So what I mean by this is when we play the game, you can see that the cards, because of the way we are getting the cards from, what is it called? Because of the way we are getting the cards from the array, we are basically getting the first 4 cards out of our stack of cards, and then repeating those first 4 again. So we have a bat, cat, house, pot, and then our bat, cat, house, and pot again. So technically the first card in the list will always match up with the 5th card in our list. and then so on the second will always match up with the 6th and the 3rd and the 7th, and then the 4th and the 8th, which is not really what we want in a memory game. So in the next episode we will go ahead and work on that UI to display the end of the game as well as how many guesses you took to complete the game. But then also we need to try and shuffle our cards so it makes the game a little bit harder, so that you can carry on playing the game over and over again because it's so fun, and you don't get bored of the same order of cards. So that is what we'll do in the next episode again. So if you enjoyed this episode and you want to continue in the next one, go ahead and like the video and also subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that video. Yeah, that's it for today, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one on, when is it, on Wednesday. Yeah, I'll see you then. Goodbye.